Hey guys, Constance here. Welcome back to A Good Life Farm. So I'm getting ready to go out and do evening chores, and I thought I would take you guys along with me to do them. But first of all, before I get started with that, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to all of you who wrote the congratulatory comments and sent messages and all of that about my announcement that I shared in regards to the grandbaby to be. So I've been asked what it is I want to be called. Now I gotta tell you, oh, and if you hear that noise, it sounds like a drum, that is Amos stomping on his food dish. Now I have to tell you, I grew up in the Midwest, and for the most part, almost everybody I knew called their grandparents Grandma and Grandpa. You know, you might specify which is which by using their last name or last initial, or sometimes it was the grandma with their first name, whatever. But it was almost always Grandma and Grandpa. I think I had one friend who didn't call her grandparents Grandma and Grandpa, and that was because her family's Italian, so they use Italian terms. Now, I did call one of my grandfathers when I was very, very little. I called him Poppy, and that was my maternal grandfather. He passed away when I was very, very small. I just have a few memories of him. He was a hunter, trapper, fisherman. He was a carpenter. And I remember shortly after I moved in here, when I had built that chicken coop, I remember thinking to myself as I was building it that I wondered what Poppy would think, whether he would be mortified by the construction or if he would be proud of me for building something like that by myself. And that was the first of the many projects here on the homestead. And when my parents came for their first visit here and my father saw the chicken coop, he actually made the comment that my grandfather would be proud of me, and so that actually meant a whole lot to me. But I digress. So I called him Poppy, but Grandma and Grandpa were the terms that almost everybody I knew used. Until I moved here to the South, and I realized that there was a whole lot of other terms for grandparents. Some of them I can get, some of them I cannot wrap my brains around. So I had someone ask me what I wanted to be called. Well, I can tell you my family heritage is primarily German, and when I took my first foreign language in high school, German, and I learned that Oma was the kind of familial term for grandmother. Of course, you got Großmama as well, or Großmutter, but I decided if I ever had a grandchild someday that I wanted to be called Oma. Now, Mr. Smith, I don't know what he wants to be called. He hasn't specified yet, but I'll be Oma. So, my battery is about to die, so let me go change out this battery, and then we will get started on evening chores. So I actually ended up changing cameras because apparently all my batteries are dead on my other camera.
Hi, baby.
So, no, bless you. Bless you. So normally Mr. Smith and I do the chores together in the evening, but he has been out of town. I came back in the evening the other day and he left the very next morning. He'll actually be home sometime tonight, so by the time this video goes up he'll be back home. Many of you know that my mother-in-law passed away at the end of last year, and my father-in-law passed away a couple years ago, and so none of the family, none of the children of them, Mr. Smith and his siblings, none of them live up in East Tennessee where their house was or is, which means it's kind of been an ongoing thing to work on clearing the house and all of that, and so that's what they've been doing this weekend, working on the house with all of the family. It's a hard task, and you know, I actually went up there back in the spring, did a trip up there when Mr. Smith wasn't going to be able to go because of some meetings that he had, so I kind of took his spot and went up there and helped the Smith clan. Saw my daughter while I was up there. But, alright, I see you, Amos. He's ready for his treats. They're in my pocket, buddy. Hi, baby. I don't have any more treats for you. No more treats. Hi, baby. Oh, does it feel good? Oh. Don't be a butt. Hi, baby. What have I got? Hey! Go on. Okay, so right here behind me on the counter is my electric roaster, and I have it filled to the top with things out of the freezer that I grew this year in the garden and then just froze. Particularly lots and lots of tomatoes. The other day I posted a video that I had filmed out in the greenhouse, and at the end of it I mentioned I was getting ready to spend some time with a friend of mine. So she came over and we headed out to Coleman, and I took her to the Mercantile, which is, you know, that wonderful old-fashioned sort of shop that I love to frequent, and I go quite often to, you know, even if I'm not getting something, I just enjoy walking through it. You know, believe it or not, I don't actually like shopping, but I do like antiquing. And I think that's why I like that store, because it has a very old-fashioned feel to it. So we went in there because she had never been. And after that, we went and had some lunch together. And then I took her to the giant antique store in Coleman that I have mentioned to you guys, but I haven't filmed it yet. One of these days I'm going to take my camera along and film that. Afterwards, we came back here to the house and we just kind of sat down and we were chatting for a bit. And we were talking about just the state of the world, stuff that's going on, and I mentioned how I feel like I have too much of a reliance on electric things to store food. And that, you know, we have 2 huge freezers and I really needed to work on dwindling down the contents of them and start canning a lot of it. You know, I knew I needed to start canning all of my tomatoes, and I had bought a bunch of whole chickens to start doing chicken broth. I had some beef and I had beef bones to do beef broth because my stock of both the chicken and beef are almost gone, and actually I think my beef broth is gone. I used my last jar of that. And so I told her how I needed to start working on my canning. Well, that was Friday. Saturday evening, I realized that my freezer, one of my freezers that I said I relied on too much, my biggest freezer was not running. And that put me into a scramble of, okay, what can I pull out of the freezer? What can I move into the chest freezer to make room? What can I take out of there? And all of that. So it was just the mad dash of pulling things out that I could sacrifice, pulling things out I could work on immediately, like all of my tomatoes and those whole chickens. And so I went out to the barn, got my big cooler. It's this huge, like 150 quart cooler. Keeps everything cold for 6 days. Got a whole bunch of ice, threw the whole chickens in there, threw all of my tomatoes in there, and immediately filled my roaster here with tomatoes and veggies to work on my first batch of sauce. And so, like I said, this is now my second one. And the crazy thing is, that night after I got everything out of the freezer and I exposed the control knob for the temperature, and I just kind of turned it and it kicked on. It kicked on and it's stayed on, and everything, the little bit that was still in there, is now completely frozen. But I don't trust it, so I'm going to wait until Mr. Smith gets home, and which actually it'll be tomorrow because it's already getting dark. And we're gonna pull out that freezer, see if maybe the intake is clogged, maybe it needs to be cleaned out, because this freezer is only, I wanna say maybe 4 years old, and it was not a cheap freezer. I spent good money on this freezer because I wanted it to last, and for it to do this was a little nerve-wracking. So, yeah, I'll be doing lots of canning this week, and it's crazy how, you know, I no sooner say that I rely too much on electricity for food storage, and that happened. I actually saw earlier today that Rachel and Todd at that 1870s homestead just got a freeze dryer, and I've been looking hard at those freeze dryers and thought about maybe saving up and ordering one myself. I mean, I know they don't ship right away. Like, you put in your order and it takes some time to actually get it. I don't think they're shipping immediately, but I'm going to watch their thoughts on it and see what they think and see if it's worth the investment, because, you know, I do a lot of canning, but there's some things that are hard to can, some things that just don't do well when you're canning them, and I like having another option. And while yes, it takes electricity to run the freeze dryer, once you have that food saved, it's good. I'll be honest with you, you know, I don't talk a lot about politics and current events and things like that on here unless they are relevant to a devotional that I'm feeling led to talk about. But there are some things that I've been seeing. You know, I follow the economy, even though I don't invest in stocks or anything like that. I do follow what's going on, and I pay attention to what economists are talking about and what the banks are talking about. And there are some serious red flags that I'm seeing. And I think we need to start learning old skills and learning ways to do things without necessarily always having 100% electricity. You know, there are places in our country that has rolling brownouts, they have blackouts and things like that because the power grid is way overextended, and they won't do anything to increase the source of electricity. And now we have car companies saying that they're no longer going to produce gas combustion engine vehicles, that they're going to start moving to electric, 100% electric. We don't have the power grid for that, you guys. We don't have the technology for that. And I think we are being set up for hard times. But I will just say, do your homework on it yourself and see what you think about it. So I think this whole fiasco with the freezer was just kind of the indicator to me that, yeah, I was right. I rely too much on electricity for food storage. I think there's things that I've not shared in the past, things that I've canned and not done videos on or anything like that. So I will see if I can't share the process of the things that I'm going to be canning. That is it for today. I am losing light, as you can probably tell. So thanks for hanging out with me here again at the homestead. My name is Constance at A Good Life Farm, and I'll talk to y'all next time.